Greetings and hello. My name is Sean, also known as Rob Hagan in certain circles, and this is day 23 of my 2020 VEDA challenge, VEDA being vlogging every day in the month of April. So it's 23 days VEDA so far. So I'm going to kind of go back and revisit something I talked about 2 weeks ago, sort of. At the beginning of the month, Toei put up a channel of a lot of their Tokusatsu shows, their live action special effects shows, Japanese special effects shows. First two episodes of a lot of something like 70 different ones. A lot of the ones that we would be more familiar with, the things that Power Rangers and Big Bad Beetleborgs and Kamen Rider or Masked Rider, that we are blocked because the rights belong to other people. But there are a lot of other things to watch, and I've kind of been going through a lot of them. Gonna kind of talk about four or so that kind of I find interesting and are a little different than some of the stuff that's available. And I'll have links. There's a bunch of other ones I would love to talk about later on. The biggest disadvantage of the current way they're set up, unfortunately, is only the first two episodes have English subtitles. They don't. Everything else that they've put up, some of these are like 4 and 5 and 6 episodes, don't. And that's kind of the flaw with it. But I would argue because of the nature of the shows, once you kind of get past the introduction, you kind of can pick up on what the plot is. And I have about 4 or so, and there'll be links below in the description to the first episodes of these. And I kind of picked 4 that are all kind of representative of what the different things you're going to find. So let's talk about Daitetsujin 17, which is basically, if you've seen something like, say, Gigantor or any of the stuff from the 60s, more recent stuff of boy gets robot, boy uses robot to fight other monsters and robots. Very much so the first time I watched it, because I remember seeing Gigantor as a kid and other things like that. And the thing that stuck with me about that is this is essentially that, but live action. And sort of a rough summation of opens up this government group has this supercomputer called Brain. It's a giant room-filled, supercomputer that just decides, no, I don't want to work for the government anymore, and breaks away with the help of a human scientist and goes off for a year and basically forms his own little criminal enterprise. Meanwhile, the agency that he was part of is looking for it. They're called the Red Scarves, and they're trying to find Brain and bring him back. And there's a whole bunch of stuff in the first episode where they're tracking him down. They find weird seismic things. They encounter a family going to a wedding. And this is the thing I will definitely say I've gotten from watching a lot of the more serious things. They generally don't pull punches. Like, you get introduced to this family. They're taking their daughter to her wedding day. And then they all get killed, except for the young son, in a landslide caused by a giant robot controlled by Brain. And eventually the kid recovers. The government goes, oh, well, you see. He vows revenge and encounters a giant robot underground, who awakens and sort of links with him and tries to protect him. Unfortunately, I think only for this particular series, I think only the first 2 episodes are up. The second episode, they get a little bit more into what the situation is. He gets the control helmet that you'll see in the credits and everything. And you kind of the first 2 episodes kind of set the premise into place. I found it absolutely fascinating to see something that I'd only previously seen as something animated being done pretty well live action. Obviously, the giant robots are men in suits, as you would see from anything like Super Sentai or even different company, but Ultraman and stuff like that. Very engaging, very entertaining. I want to see more of it. Even if I can't understand what they're saying, I have seen enough of the first 2 episodes that give me enough of a premise I'll be able to follow. Yeah, that one sort of jumped out at me. And and I definitely recommend. There'll be a link to the first episode there. The other good thing is when you do click on the link, it tends to give you the next episode, and you can subscribe to the channel and keep up. What was the next one? Well, they call it Hard Gumi. It has a much longer name, and I'm not gonna go crazy and try to tell you, but it's called Hard Gumi on the Toei channel, which involves like these 5 sort of delinquent kids who are really smart or really good at stuff, kind of all in the same class. There's 4 boys, well, 5 boys and 1 girl, and they're all different. They have different talents, different skills. And one day they do a project where they create this fictional phantom thief called Mantero. And kind of looks like a gold masked version of V for Vendetta. And things go predictably bad for them. They have a bad encounter with a new teacher, the vice principal. Again, this is part of a more comedic Toei series of shows where it's a little bit more. There's typical Tokusatsu stuff, but it's a little bit more comedic. But the camera, it's basically their mystery comedy stuff, and then the computer they created the character on disappears. It turns out the character they thought they created is real, and basically they decide to form a detective group to stop him from committing dual thievery, and everything. Did a little digging into this, and it's actually based on an existing series of Japanese books. Surprisingly enough, which has connections to things like Persona 5. Dig a little bit more into it, and you get more information about that. I enjoy it. It's weird. It's comedic. It's not what I would have expected. Definitely can see why this wasn't released in the States. It's very Japanese in its humor, because literally there's a point where someone pisses himself. Like, that wasn't going to fly in the United States or other markets, and I can see why it was never even attempted to bring it over. It's cool. The main bad guy looks really cool in design. He's, like I said, very much so. Take V from Vendetta, give him a gold mask. It's like, and maybe a suit underneath his cape. Again, the first, I think, 2 episodes are up for that particular one. I don't know if anything more beyond that is, but the first episode will be linked here. I enjoyed it. There's another series similar to it that comes after it, where again it's a bunch of kids who are kind of delinquentish, not even like delinquents, but they're troublemakers who end up investigating yet another thief. There's a little bit more to it, but maybe I'll talk about that in a different episode after VEDA's over. So that's Hard Gumi. Next one I can talk about and ramble a bit, is Magical Girl Chukana Pai Pai, or Pai Pai. Precisely what it says on the label. It's a magical girl show. It's not Sailor Moon in the same sense. Like, there's still, there's not the big animated transformation sequence, but it's a girl with a magical pendant and a wand that has magical powers who comes to live in a town in Japan, trying to escape an unwanted marriage to a Lizard King type who turns her fiance into a bowl of ramen. Yeah, that happens. Yeah. Magical floating bowl of ramen, and it goes ramen, 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 ramen when he goes from being a man to being ramen. Who sends his 2 comedic foil flunkies to bring her back. Meanwhile, she ends up in this town in Japan, where these 3 sort of little 3 brothers are, who are kind of punks, jerks. Their father's an archaeologist. Literally, they play an Indiana Jones style theme as he goes off with his leather jacket and hat and whip. And in order to avoid staying with their evil aunt, who's definitely the actress, I've seen her in other things similar in the same sort of comedic series, which is probably the same part of the same sort of comedic series of shows that Hard Gumi is from. She plays their evil aunt, their ugly hag aunt. who they don't want to babysit them while their father is away, so they end up taking Pai Pai in. And I've watched a lot of romantic comedy stuff and domestic Japanese stuff that comes up in anime and stuff. Just again, see this very live action version of it. Very, very much more emphasis on comedy compared to the other tokusatsu, where they're usually fighting monsters. It's kind of the tokusatsu stuff is used more for doing the magic, but there's a lot more comedic, a lot more romantic comedy type elements of it. They're up to 4 episodes, but as I said, only the first 2 episodes have subtitles. Watching them though, you can pick up on who the characters are and the premise, and be able to follow in later episodes. And that's kind of what you have. You kind of have stuff happens, Pai Pai reacts, potentially the sort of comic relief villains show up to try and capture her, and she either teaches the boys a lesson or they help her out of a situation. Meanwhile, the evil aunt is trying to mess around, and the father floats in and out. Oh, I have to go back. Usually, if the aunt's gonna hang around, it's like, yeah, I have to go to the Incan Empire, and very comedic. Yeah, I mean, I don't know why it just clicked with me. It just did, and I think you might find it funny too, especially if you're looking for something that you don't normally see in a tokusatsu. Finally, talk about something a bit more traditional for what you would expect. Jiraiya, which is basically I may have mentioned this the last time I talked about this sort of thing, but I've kind of had a chance to watch a bit more. This is part of the Metal Heroes series, some of which was eventually used here in the States to make VR Troopers, which is why you can't find that particular show's episodes. That were the episodes in Japan that were used to make the show here aren't available. They're on that same block list. Same thing with the shows that became big, but they're all for the Metal Heroes. But basically, it's family. They're charged with family of ninja. This ninja clan is charged with protecting this sacred tablet that will access some sort of alien technological reserve. The sort of the main character is the adopted son of the ninja master who's training him, and he is brought in. He is eventually they're attacked by evil ninjas who want to get their half of the tablet. There's a connection between them and the evil ninjas, and other characters are introduced. Basically, it's him fighting ninjas from around the world who want this half of the tablet. The initial villain is literally a ninja who is a medieval knight, rides around on a horse and has a lance and everything, and they fight. Uh, it's good. It's good, solid tokusatsu. It's not necessarily fighting monsters. It's fighting other ninjas who are often wearing colorful costumes, and I enjoyed it. Um, Again, these are different enough from, say, Power Rangers or Kamen Rider that you're not going to go, oh, this is the same thing. They're not. They're their own thing. At the same time, if you've seen those things, you'll probably enjoy these. Um, yeah, so that's sort of talking about Tokusatsu. Now, reason I will say I do really like Japanese special effects movies and shows. I grew up watching a lot of Godzilla movies. I do remember being about a little bit around the right age, a little bit older, maybe, when Power Rangers and VR Troopers and Big Bad Beetleborgs and Masked Rider all kind of premiered in the States. And I watched Power Rangers pretty much up through the late 90s, when eventually it moved off of local television and went to like things like Disney Channel, Disney Kids, and all that. And it's something I have an appreciation for. As a kid, I enjoyed giant monsters smashing cities, but as I've gotten older, I've dug a little bit more into it, the history of it. Sometimes finding the deeper meanings in it, and sometimes understanding a little bit better about where these ideas come from. Yeah, so there you go. I kind of feel like I'm rushing through this, even though the clock is telling me about 15 minutes I've been rambling on about. But yeah, that's just a brief summary and discussion. Like I said, there'll be links down below to the first episodes of the four things I talked about in depth. And again, I'll take you also to the Toei channel. You can subscribe or go through their videos and see if anything leaps out at you. Then again, the unfortunate thing is a lot of things that we would probably be more familiar with are blocked. Uh, and I think I haven't really dug in too much about getting around it, but not going to say anything about that. You might be able to find a way around the block, but I think they're kind of just region blocked, like for good. But anyway, uh, that's enough of a ramble about Tokusatsu. So yeah, I hope you do check out those links and enjoy, and maybe find something else you didn't think. I'm hoping eventually their call that they put out for fan subbers or independent subbers to come in and sub some of the stuff, so that way I could actually understand what's going on happens. If not, you at least have the first two episodes, and you can build on the premise. The one good thing about a lot of these shows, the premise is formulaic for a reason. Anyway, I think that's enough me chattering on. My name is Sean, and I hope that you are doing well, and I hope that you're feeling well. And until next time, I'll be seeing you, my friends.